Yes, we are very good friends. We are young, crazy friends who share cannabis and who share friendship.
We are all got together.
Yes, we would like now to make it and to just make love and smoke. Now I
The point of beat, man, is that you get beat down to a certain nakedness, where you actually are able to see the world in a visionary way, which, by words of us, is the classical understand of what happens in the dark night of the soul.
So, fuck dude, I guess you might say we are beat. Well, beats today.
Several months ago, a national magazine ran a story under the heading Youth, and the subhead Mother is bugged at me. It concerned an 18-year-old California girl who had been picked up for smoking marijuana and wanted to talk about it. While a reporter took down her ideas in the up-tempo language of tea, someone snapped a picture. In view of her contention that she was part of a whole new culture, where 1 out of every 5 people you meet is a user, it was an arresting photograph. In the pale, attentive face, with his soft eyes and intelligent mouth, there was no hint of corruption. It was a face which could only be deemed criminal through an enormous effort of righteousness. Its only complaint seemed to be, why don't people leave us alone? It was the face of a beat generation. It is a post-war generation, and in a world which seems to mark its cycles by its words, it is already being compared to that other post-war generation, which dubbed itself Lusts. The roaring 20s and the generation that made them roar are going through a sentimental revival, and the comparison is valuable. The last generation was discovered in a roadster, laughing hysterically because nothing meant anything anymore. It migrated to Europe, unsure whether it was looking for the orgiastic future or escaping from the puritanical past. Its symbols were the flapper, the flask of bootleg whiskey, and an attitude of desperate frivolity best expressed by the line, "Tennis, anyone?" It was caught up in the romance of disillusionment, until even that became an illusion. Every act in its drama of lostness was a tragic or ironic third act, and T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland was more than a deadened statement of a perceptive poet. The pervading atmosphere of that poem was an almost objectless sense of loss, through which the reader felt immediately that the cohesion of things had disappeared. It was, for an entire generation, an image which expressed with dreadful accuracy its own spiritual condition. This generation may make no bombs. It will probably be asked to drop some and have some dropped on it, however, and this fact is never far from its mind. It is one of the precious which created it and will play a large part in what will happen to it. There are those who believe that in generations such as this, there is always the constant possibility of a great new moral idea, conceived in desperation, coming to life. Others note the self-indulgence, the waste, the apparent social irresponsibility, and disagree. But its ability to keep its eyes open and yet avoid cynicism, its ever-increasing conviction that the problem of modern life is essentially a spiritual problem, and that capacity for sudden wisdom which people who live hard and go far possess, are assets and bear watching. And, anyway, the clear, challenging faces are worth it.
It would be stimulating to transform your nakedness of soul into an aphrodisiac,
We are not married.
which I have to admit could push me so hard that I can fuck a dead bag of black meat this very moment.
Take him instead.
But unfortunately, he likes to spend more time in his fucking stupid interzone.
Very naked, no lunch.
Which I have to admit could push me so hard. Which I have to... Oh. But what do you expect from Harvard intellectuals in the end, anyway?
Now George was a good straight boy to begin with. There's bad blood in him some way, and he got into the magic bullets that lead straight to the devil's world. Just like marijuana leads to heroin. You think you can take them bullets and leave them, do you? Just save a few for your bad days? Well, we all have those bad days when we can't hear for shit. The more of them magics you use, the more bad days you have without them. So it comes down to finally all your days being bad without the bullets. The magic's for nothing. Time to stop kicking around and kick yourself. Kid, you're hooked. Heavy as lead. And that's where old George found himself out there at the crossroads, molding the devil's bullets. Now, man figures it's his bullets, so it'll take what he wants. It don't always work out that way.
To look at the world in a visionary way. A vision, yes, the vision is what we need today. We are the generation without hello or goodbye. The generation beaten down by the political, unlogical consequences. Beat today, the B generation yesterday. For those who believe, for those who pray, for those who suffer, those who despair. For you, for him, for us, for her, tomorrow and today, and sometimes even yesterday. What about Joanne and Eddie? Are those creatures really women, Ellen? Why don't they speed up their cells with some Benzedrino?
Forget them, Jack. Why don't we sink down into our awareness, into our spiritual freedom of man love? Or is this forbidden in your Puritan French-Canadian woods?
I can feel culture and social devotion. I can see beatific and horrific days and nights coming down at us. But I prefer the rebellion of the intellectual anarchic spirit instead of their fucking boring lives.
Why don't you publish on the road here into sound country? Good days, sunshine. Let's pretend.
Come on, dude. What shall we anyway? I think we should write about the freedom of existing. Show beatnik attitude. Climb up the walls for inspiration. choose Mexican pot instead of American. Sleep with ghosts in Marrakesh.
It's not dedication, Jack. It's meditation, prayer, transcendence. We need to find our roots again. Humanity is lost in the howling void out there. Our job is to fill that hole with more of it. We need to enlarge eternity, man.
I just like to keep it going. I don't like urban surroundings for lunch. My temple of Zen is the road. The serpenting hills, behind bars and banks, beyond the desert. It's my place to be.
We had the last generation writing and drinking absinthe in the bars of Paris.
We had the beat generation writing and smoking pot in Greenwich Village cafes. And then those hippie flower bosom children dancing naked around bonfires in Woodstock. They had to make way to drunk leather monkeys, punks with strange haircuts and aggressive looks of disappointment in their eyes. What came crawling afterwards? From trivial dormitories of bourgeois houses in London, pink Cadillacs with empty neons in Los Angeles. It's history. Today, ground zero tamed capitalists. Today, fat television and TNT selling lawyers with visit cards and credits in Switzerland. Today, governments of whores deciding in expensive conference rooms millions of human destinies and fucking their fat lifted wives and their summer vacation houses on the Riviera. Today, the fuck generation hanging around the street corners, wearing nice shirts, drinking Heineken, buying weed, and waiting for nothing to happen soon.
All fragments, just fragments of us. They walk beneath this world, but it is evil. Far back in time, it was evil. Evil was hidden deep under this encrusted earth. It was always here. We can find it. We can find it. What for? What for? Why? Why? We can find it. Why? Why? We can find it. Why? 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 What for? Why? What for? Why? Why? Every citizen is required to apply for and carry on these persons and plans and portfolio documents. Citizens were subject to be stopped in the street at any time, and the examiner who might be in plain clothes, in various uniforms, often in a bathing suit or pyjamas, sometimes stark and naked except for a badge left in his left nipple. After checking each paper, would stamp it. In subsequent inspection, the citizen was required to show the properly. Every citizen comes to the last inspection. The examiner, when he stopped the large group and stamped the cards of a few, the others were then subject. Every citizen of an exit is required.
first met Dean, not long after my wife and I split up, I had just gotten over a serious illness that I won't bother to talk about, except that it had something to do with the miserably weary split up and my feeling that everything was dead. With the coming of demorality began the part of my life you could call my life on the road. Before that, I'd often dreamed of going west to see the country, always vaguely planning and never taking off. Dean is the perfect guy for the road because he actually was born on the road when his parents were passing through Salt Lake City in 1926 in a jalopy on their way to Los Angeles. First reports of him came to me through Chad King, who'd shown me a few letters from him written in a New Mexico Reform School. I was tremendously interested in the letters because they so naively and sweetly asked Chad to teach him all about Nietzsche and all the wonderful intellectual things that Chad knew. At one point, Carlo and I talked about the letters and wondered if we would ever meet the strange Dean Moriarty. This is all far back, when Dean was not the way he is today, when he was a young jail kid, shrouded in mystery. Then news came that Dean was out of Reform School and was coming to New York for the first time. Also there was talk that he had just married a girl called Mary Lou. One day I was hanging around the campus and Chad and Tim Gray told me Dean was staying in a cold water pad in East Harlem, the Spanish Harlem. Dean had arrived the night before, the first time in New York, with his beautiful little sharp chick Mary Lou. They got off the Greyhound bus at 50th Street and cut around the corner looking for a place to eat, and went right in Hector's. And since then, Hector's cafeteria has always been a big symbol of New York for Dean. They spent money on beautiful big glazed cakes and cream puffs. All this time, Dean was telling Mary Lou things like this. Now, darling, here we are in New York, and although I haven't quite told you anything, I was thinking about it, craft and jewelry, and especially at the point when we passed the cool little laboratory, which reminded me of my jail problem, is absolutely necessary. Now, to postpone all those leftover things concerning our personal life and once we get thinking of specific work-life plans. And so on in the way that you had in those early days.
Deus in aiutorium meum mindende, Domine adiuvantum me festina, gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Alleluia. Fratres, cum in fine nuius diei, quam Deus nobis largitus es pervenerimus, peccata nostra agnoscamus. Deo omnipotenti et vobis fratres, quia peccam in nimis cogitatione, verbo, opere et commissione, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, ideo precor beata Maria semper Virgine, omnes angelos et sanctos et postrates, orare pro mea Dominum Deum.
Make my grave shape of heart, so like a flower be free air, and uncontrolled. Grave root pillow, tongue up from grave, and wiggle at blown or close. Ear turns close to underlay, of green first moss and so, of rain dribbled through his layer, down to the root that will tickle my ear. Hey grave, my toes in cutting, so file away in sound, curve or garbage grave, way above my head. Blood will soon trickle in my ear. No choice but the grave, so cat and sheep are daisy turned. Train will tuck my grave, my breath viewing gentle vapor between wheel and track. So kitten string and ball jump over this mound so gently and cutely, so my toe can curl and become a snail and go curiously on its way, down to the root that will tickle my ear.
I watched my father's friends roll cigarettes when I was young, leaning against our black tar paper shack, the wheat straw grimy in their hands, talking of cars and tools and jobs.
Ni vizuri kukutana na marafiki na kuburudika nao kama vile sasa. Nilingoja wakati kama huu ufike kwa muda, na sasa huu wakati umewadia na nina raha. Wakati huu unanikumbusha mamangu akiniambia, tuliza mwanangu, usikimbilie raha ilhali uko mdogo. Raha haiendi mahali. Hivi karibuni utakuwa mwanamke mzima na utakuwa ukiburudika na wenzako vile utakavyo, na hata utachoka. Haraka haraka haina baraka mwanangu. Nilikuwa nikieka shingo pande, kwani ilikuwa kama milele, walakini sasa wakati
Put the glass on your head.
I can't look. You know I can't stand the sight of blood.
Come on, show the boys what kind of shot good old Bill is. Call my lawyer. Get me out of this situation.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving hysterical nakeds, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn, looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient heavenly connection to the stereo dynamo in the machinery of night, who poverty and tatters and hollow-eyed and high set up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats, floating across the tops of cities contemplating jazz, who bared their brains to heaven under the L and saw Mohammedan angels staggering on tenement roofs, illuminated, who passed through universities with radiant cool eyes, hallucinating Arkansas and Blake light tragedy among the scholars of war, who were expelled from the academies for crazy and publishing obscene odes on the windows of the skull, who covered in unshaven rooms in underwear, burning their money in waste baskets and listening to the terror through the wall, who got busted in their pubic beards returning through Laredo with a belt of marijuana for New York, who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley, death or purgatoried their torsos night after night. With dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, alcohol and cock and endless balls. Incomparable blinds, streets of shuddering clouds, and lightning in the mind leaping toward poles of Canada and Patterson, illuminating all the motionless world of time between. Peyote solidities of halls, backyard green trees, cemetery dawns, wine drunkenness over the rooftops, storefronts, burroughs of tea-hat joyride, neon blinking traffic lights, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the roaring winter dusks of Brooklyn. Ashcan rantings and kind king light of mind who chained themselves to subways for the endless ride from Battery to Holy Bronx on Benzedrine until the noise of wheels and children brought them down shuddering, mouth-wrecked and battered, bleak of brain, all drained of brilliance in the drear light of zoom, zoom, zoom.
When it gets too hot for comfort and you can't get ice cream cones, it ain't no sin to take off your skin and dance around in your bones. Just like those bamboo babies down in the South Sea tropic zone. It ain't no sin to take off your skin and dance around.
Every citizen of Annexia was required to apply for and carry on his person at all times a whole portfolio of documents. Citizens were subject to be stopped in the street at any time, and the examiner, who might be in plain clothes, in various uniforms, often in a bathing suit or pyjamas, sometimes stark naked except for a badge pinned to his left nipple, after checking which paper would stamp it. In subsequent inspection, the citizen was required to show the properly entered stamps to the last inspection. The examiner, when he stopped a large group, would only examine and stamp the cards of a few. The others were then subject to arrest because their cards were not properly stamped. Arrest meant provisional detention, that is, the prisoner would be released if and when his affidavit of explanation, properly signed and stamped, was approved by the assistant arbiter of explanations. Since this official hardly ever came to his office and the affidavit of explanation had to be presented in person,